Urban Libraries Council Toolkit presentation on recovery and imagine public library services post-COVID-19. This toolkit session is about library programming inside and outside the library. My name is Maureen Sawa, and I am the CEO of the Greater Victoria Public Library, speaking to you from Victoria, BC. It has been my privilege to be a member of the Canadian Urban Library Council's think tank on recovery and reimagined library services, and to facilitate this library programming working group, the group of which has done a remarkable job of developing the toolkit for you on library programming. So I'm going to introduce the members of our group in the next slide, where we have everyone listed. We have a very large working group, literally coast to coast. And one of the reasons it was so large was originally we were looking at developing two toolkits, one on library programming inside our facilities and one on library programming outside, but we quickly realized that many of the principles were the same. So as you'll see in the toolkit, we've kind of merged some aspects of it. So the members of the Library Programming Toolkit are Evette Barry, who's the Service Delivery Manager for Calgary Public Library, and Evette will be presenting live with us today. Karen Dahl, who's the Senior Manager, Programming and Community Engagement for the Halifax Public Libraries, and Karen will also be presenting with us live today. Penny Lynn Fielding, who is the Deputy CEO of the Kitchener Public Library, and Penny Lynn will be available to help respond to questions. Tracy Kendrick, Coordinator of Public Services for the Greater Victoria Public Library. Carrie Kitchen, who is the Service Design Lead for Calgary Public Library. Shauna May, the Service Delivery Manager for Calgary Public Library. Jennifer Rowan, who's the Coordinator of Public Services for the Greater Victoria Public Library, and Jennifer will be presenting live today. And finally, Lisa Rado Weaver, Director of Collections and Program Development for the Hamilton Public Library. Lisa will be helping us with the Q&A aspects of today's presentation. So just to remind you that we will be presenting for the first 30 minutes. We'll be doing our presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. So before I turn things over to the team, we're just going to go to the next slide and just provide you with a little bit of background and context for the toolkit. And what we want everyone to understand is that our toolkits were designed not to be kind of the be-all and end-all, every answer to every question that you might have. The goals are for us to have the opportunity to compare notes, look at different jurisdictions, and be practical, timely and accessible, and be relevant to the widest possible audience of Canadian libraries. And I have to say this team was brilliant in terms of pulling all sorts of information and examples from every potential aspect of libraries, small and large. We also spent a lot of time in terms of what are the questions, what issues do we need to consider, and again, the toolkit's goal is to share innovative responses. So that's kind of an overview of the toolkit. In the next slide, I just have couple more things to say in terms of context. This particular toolkit is organized, as the others are, into 4 sections: key considerations, best and leading practices, stories from the field, and additional resources. And again, just to note that, you know, in using the toolkit, as with all the other toolkits, we can't stress enough how important it is to consider your local situation, provincial, territorial, and regional expectations to reflect the need of your own particular community. The toolkit is a living document, and we'll speak to that at the end of today's presentation. So as I say, for the first 30 minutes of our webinar, we will be presenting a high-level summary of the work that the group has done. And to start things off, Karen is going to speak to the section on key considerations. So I'm going to turn things over to Karen, who is in Halifax. Karen.
Thank you, Maureen, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Really, after years of focusing our program energy on bringing community members together in our libraries, I think we all recognize COVID-19 has fundamentally changed the landscape for programming now and into the future. This is bringing challenges for sure, but it's also bringing lots of exciting opportunities for us. Now, I am starting off with our overview of key considerations. And in the toolkit, these are posed as questions. We've identified 7 action areas that can help us reimagine programming for our communities in a COVID-19 world. So I'm going to start with planning. While many things are shifting in programming at this time, it's reassuring to remember that libraries are grounded in core values and strategic priorities that really position us well to change direction and evolve. Our approaches are changing, but we're still responding to the needs of our community, and that's what drives programming in public libraries. As a starting point, libraries need to identify audiences and programs that are priorities at this time. So who is the most vulnerable? Where are the gaps in community response? What makes most sense for your library? And we need to think about community needs that have emerged or deepened as a result of the pandemic. What programs can we create or adapt to address these? Let's take a bird's eye view of our offerings, balancing program approaches to meet different needs. What works digitally? Where do we need to reach out into the community? Are there in-person programs that we can provide safely? These are some of the questions that we have. And with so much changing, we really need to review how we're allocating our resources. Resource rebalancing is going to be required, and we may need to invest in some new areas. Most importantly, we'll need to be adaptable in this new world, phasing in programs, adjusting as we go, responding to changing needs, and shifting as health advisories flex and tighten in the coming months. Let's move to communications. This is an area we really need to be thoughtful about as we transition. How will we guide program participants in new practices and reassure them that we have safety precautions in place? We're going to need to anticipate questions and prepare responses to issues that may come up. And we'll need to be creative, using a variety of marketing and engagement strategies to reach our community members, including so many of those who aren't online. And we'll be challenged to re-engage some of our traditional library users in new program formats, while also still reaching out to new audiences. Lots of challenges there. Let's look at physical distancing. As we all know, the needs for physical distancing the need upends many of our traditional in-person program models. So what's possible now for in-person programming? And when might social distancing be hard to achieve, even when we take precautions? For example, can young children be expected to manage physical distancing indoors? What level of movement is possible? Can we safely do one-on-one instruction? Is outdoor or off-site programming an alternative for your library? Let's look at other safety precautions. When we think about introducing adapted or new programs, ensuring the health and safety of staff, volunteers, partners, and of course participants from the community is a key priority. So for in-person interactions, the toolkit will invite you to consider a variety of factors. Protective equipment, sanitizing of surfaces, and reducing shared materials are just a few examples of these. And for virtual programming, libraries are going to need to find ways to support online safety and privacy, perhaps more than ever before. Our 5th section addresses support to staff. We know supporting our workforce in this transition time is critical. Our programmers will require training, both in health and safety measures for programs and for new and adapted program models. We also know that while dealing with their own concerns, our staff will be engaging with community members who will bring their own fears, stresses, and sense of risk into the program environment. And we really want to support them and the public through this. In addition to our staff, we need to explore new ways to support members of the community. So we'll talk a little bit about community support. What can we do to make programs feel safe, welcoming, and inclusive at this time? Let's think about vulnerable or underserved audiences. Let's reach out to Indigenous communities. How can we reduce or remove barriers? And let's focus even more on partnership and sharing, both within the library world and with our wider community partners. There's tremendous potential when we collaborate, participate in networks of support, and share resources. We really hope this toolkit is a practical example of this kind of sharing. And the final slide for key considerations focuses on operational challenges and opportunities that are arising. Without a doubt, COVID-19 has forced libraries to adapt and innovate quickly. What's emerging are revised and new program models and approaches. Some of these you'll want to keep building on now and into the future. And as we continue to reinvent ourselves, we'll need to review and adjust our staffing models and roles. Energy will need to shift as we adjust volume and types of programs, approaches, and we may need some new skills at the table. So while the pandemic is shaking some of our programming transitions and traditions, this feels like an invigorating time to explore new possibilities. So with that overview of key considerations, I will turn this over to Evette, who will introduce the Toolkit's best practice and learning section.
Great, thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. The idea behind our best practices section of the toolkit was to explore possible reopening scenarios for programming, considering recommendations from local and national health agencies, social distancing protocols, and community need. The group considered ways to maintain the safety of library patrons and staff while providing programming that the library is uniquely positioned to offer, both inside and outside the library, in a variety of library settings, including the virtual setting. Though each library will have its own unique challenges when planning for safe programming, there are several areas of common consideration. These included enhanced hygiene procedures for cleaning and disinfecting public areas, providing adequate protective gear, such as masks and gloves for staff while programming for the public, and clear, concise messaging to allow patrons and staff to receive programming information and to navigate safely through library spaces. The key considerations portion of the document provides libraries with important questions to consider. Each library's pre-pandemic strategic plan, infrastructure, technology, staffing, and partnerships are unique. New health procedures and resources that can be leveraged will also be specific to individual libraries. Once staff have taken stock of where they are and have gone through the questions and the key considerations, planning can start to reinstate programming that is best fit for each library situation. You may dramatically change the programming you offer. Give yourself time to adapt and plan for this and to be creative. Technology and social media are big considerations, and each library will be positioned differently. A flexible, phased-in approach allows you to be responsive to the situation, which is evolving constantly, as we know. Be prepared for some new ideas and approaches to be unsuccessful or a bit bumpy to start, and this is okay. Ensure you have a good evaluation plan in place so that you are prepared to make changes, learn lessons, identify what's working well and areas for improvement, and ensure you are achieving your objectives. Establish priorities so you're not trying to do it all. Start by learning about which audiences in your community are most in need and what kind of programming meets their needs, as Karen had previously mentioned. Connect with community agencies and municipal partners to learn about your community. Collaborating with municipal and community partners will strengthen your efforts, and in some cases, this will be critical. You may want to align with procedures that local schools, parks, and rec centers are following. Ensuring staff and patron safety is critical for in-person programs. Staff will need protective procedures, equipment, and training on safety. Give yourself time to lead and support staff in developing new skill sets and celebrate your successes and milestones along the way. Many libraries are moving toward or enhancing virtual programs. This could be for library programs or participating in virtual programs led by partners, such as schools. Some examples include live programs, such as Facebook Live. Examples include live story times or baby times posted to social media. These can be watched by patrons at a later date and time. Video conferencing programs such as Zoom. Examples include virtual book clubs or collaborating with a school on a kindergarten readiness parent talk. Produced or edited programs that can be posted to the library's website or social media, including YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or Niche Academy. Examples include a cooking demo or promotion of library resources. This is a great time for libraries to get creative. And next up, Jennifer will be sharing highlights of creative ideas from around the country.
So for this section of the toolkit, we did an environmental scan of CULC member library websites and social media outlets. In addition, we looked at some of the smaller libraries serving more rural communities and found that most libraries surveyed had moved to offering at least some sort of programming online. Those that were offering online programming were often libraries that had already been offering some form of online storytime series, usually for families with young children, but sometimes for older audiences as well. Story times were offered in a variety of ways, either live or pre-recorded, and streaming usually via the library's website, Zoom, or social media channels. Many libraries were also using YouTube for posting videos, and Niche Academy is also being used. There were also a great many examples of fun and innovative programs that offer interaction with older kids and teens. Just some examples, there's a fabulous knowledge challenge online scavenger hunt for kids from Halifax Public Libraries, a Lego challenge delivered via Zoom from London Public Library, online escape rooms either created in-house or licensed, available through Halifax Public Libraries and Milton Public Libraries as an example. There's many others. Learning at home was encouraged through a variety of program ideas, including crafts, learning to play an instrument, science experiments, and coding. Now for the next slide. For adults, many book clubs are now being delivered online. So people in Edmonton can enjoy the EPL from Home Digital Book Club via Twitter. In Ontario, Burlington Reads at Home has created an online community via social media and provides related links for further exploration. Author visits are also moving online. So one example, here in Victoria, the Victoria Children's Literature Roundtable partners with GVPL to host author visits in the library, though most recently they tried a Zoom meeting for the first time. And they were able to bring in an author from Ontario, Heather Smith, for a writing workshop. So not only did more people participate, but there were no travel costs and people could tune in from the comfort of home. So that worked really well. Vancouver Public Library offered a suite of online Indigenous storyteller in residence programming, including film screenings, online storytelling, and discussion sessions. Lecture series also continue in new ways. In Calgary, 140 people attended a Zoom version of their popular Think Big program series, featuring Jay Ingram and experts from the Hotchkiss Brain Institute. And creative opportunities for adults have also moved online. Saskatoon Public Library posts to their social media channels a daily dance party delivered via Spotify. Calgary Public Library is offering smaller songwriter in residence programs, which allows members to connect in small groups with the library's first songwriter in residence. And Halifax Public Libraries post cooking tutorials from library staff members' kitchens. And Wood Buffalo Regional Library in Fort McMurray has posted exercise videos filmed by a staff member in her house. So newcomer programming is also being offered online, with many institutions offering online conversation groups. And libraries such as Surrey Public Library are offering English and citizenship classes, as well as employment support through foreign credential recognition, immigrant entrepreneurship, and career paths for skilled immigrants. Adults are also being supported through a variety of employment support programs, such as resume writing, but also in programs that tackle parenting and even now dealing with COVID-19. The next slide. It's important to keep in mind that not all people we serve have access to high-speed internet and/or the tools to connect to it. Most institutions surveyed are offering some information services via phone, and some institutions are also offering programming such as stories by phone, including Oakville, Hamilton, and Toronto Public Libraries. Libraries have responded to their community's unique needs in a variety of ways over the last few months, and in some cases, this community work looks very different from what libraries have traditionally done, but in some cases, it's just delivering traditional services in a different way. For example, Halifax Public Libraries has been distributing take-home snacks and activity packs for kids, with adult activity packs planned for delivery through community partners such as food centers, and 9 Toronto Public Library locations centers in partnership with local food banks. In Montreal, the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec opened the Grande Bibliothèque during the day to people experiencing homelessness, with about 50 people admitted at a time to follow social distancing guidelines. Calgary Public Library worked with social workers at the City of Calgary to distribute Chromebooks to partner agencies across the city, including newcomer agencies, students, and Indigenous organizations. And Brampton Library staff are using their library's 3D printers to make protective face shields for healthcare workers. And Windsor Public Library launched its Bookmobile on Demand, where patrons could contact the library to request items to be delivered to their home. Partnerships continue to provide opportunities for amazing patron experiences. For example, the Windsor Symphony Orchestra paired up with Windsor Public Library for a Read Aloud program. So those are just some examples of the variety of programming and outreach services that we saw that's happening across the country. It was very inspiring to see the work that people have been doing and have adapted so quickly. As mentioned, it's a challenging time, but also an extremely creative opportunity for us to rethink and move forward in a new way for libraries. In our next slide, we've highlighted some resources. So there are many great resources to support you in developing or adapting programming, as well as information to help navigate the health and safety of patrons and staff as we reopen. So on the screen, we've highlighted a selection of resources, but in our actual toolkit, we've divided our resource list into 6 sections. There's a section for programming inside the library, where you'll find specific programming ideas, for example, Digital Summer Reading Club, or information about copyright, or cleaning of toys when our physical spaces reopen. We also collected a lot of examples from GLAM sector programming. There was just so much great work happening in museums and archives and galleries. So we did highlight that as a special section. And just to mention a few, there was a fabulous Canada Performs initiative from the National Arts Centre to fund artists for online performances that also includes writers. That happened in partnership with the Writers' Trust of Canada and CBC Books. And museum programming that has connected curators to teachers and students who are learning from home. Programming examples from other cultural and community organizations. For example, the Barkerville Historic Town and Park is now open for free virtual field trips for teachers and students. We've included a few retail and vendor examples, and also a section on programming outside the library that includes an article on phased reopening of libraries, as well as links to community-led resources from both Halifax Public Libraries and Vancouver Public Library. We also have a section of French resources from libraries in Quebec. So I hope that you'll find those useful. And I think as what will come up later is an opportunity for us to continue to keep sharing some of these great resources, because there is so much happening across the country. Now I will pass it over to Maureen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evette, Karen, and Jennifer, for providing us with such a succinct summary of the amount of material that this group has collected. I would have to say, and I meant to indicate this at the beginning in my introduction, I have never worked with such a keen and efficient group in a very long time. Library programmers, and I used to be a library programmer, we certainly know how to pivot and to quickly move. And I think the information that you will find in the toolkit will be very, very helpful. Lisa and I have been monitoring the questions that have come up in chat, and a couple of them I think were referenced in some of the things that Jennifer mentioned. But Lisa, I think one of the questions was, how do you promote programs that are accessible via telephone for people that aren't online? And a couple of people commented about using more traditional promotions like newspaper coverage and things like that. But I wondered if our three speakers have any thoughts on, the reference was made to the Zoom capacity that people could dial in if they're not able to access on a computer. Any suggestions about that?
Karen, I think we'll start with you because I know that you're tucking some promotions in with some of the distributions you're doing.
Yeah, we have been able to reach out to shelters and community support sites that are providing food at this time to the community. And we knew at least in the early days, we weren't wanting to bring people out for additional reasons. So we were able to provide snack and activity packs, and we're starting to leverage those. We know we're reaching vulnerable community members there who may not be picking up promotions in any other way, so we can attach, whether it's new health advisory information or library program information, other opportunities, or even just promoting our Ask the Library helpline where they can be referred to other resources or have questions answered. So it's provided in a rather old school tool, but it is one way that we're reaching a number of people. We've delivered over 10,000 snack packs so far. So we've got a weekly distribution that is moving some information out.
Jennifer, did you want to talk about any non-traditional marketing that you've done?
Well, we are just starting now to think about how we're going to be promoting, programs in the future. So I think, advertising for us, a lot of our promotion happens through our partners. So we are now starting to get back into, building up those relationships again and connecting in that way. So, joining them in meetings, talking with their participants. That's probably going to be our focus for the next while, is really working through our partners.
And Evette, what's been the most successful non-traditional marketing tool that you've used?
I'd probably say even probably some of our programs, our Zoom programs for children are especially good, and we've used the website a lot to get the information out to people.
So Jennifer, we're going to go back to you for our next question. For the promotions through the partners, can you just talk a little bit more about that? Is it that your partners are promoting what's happening at the library? Or are you providing them some kind of a scripted messaging, or are you actually providing them the actual graphic that they can print and share?
Yeah, most often we're like with some of our some of our partners, we send out the information and they include it in their newsletters. So usually it's just program descriptions, times, and things like that we've done in the past. Sometimes though, we're going and actually speaking at their events to promote upcoming events. And many of our programs we have offered in partnership. So both organizations are doing promotions. So right now, most of it's happening online, of course, but in the past, we used to have posters that we would put up in sort of other locations that where our partners were.
I don't see any other questions right now. Karen, did you have any other things from the key considerations that you wanted to share with us?
I think I probably talked the most and covered a fair amount of details. So I'm wondering if we might want to invite others to add some details. There are other members of the team who may have some thoughts they'd like to contribute.
Penny Lynn, did you have stuff from Kitchener or just overall programming that you wanted to add into our conversation today?
One of the things that we found quite successful is our virtual volunteer opportunities that we've provided sort of as a program. We've done English Conversation Circle. We've really engaged our teen audience that's through volunteer opportunities, and we have an obituary transcription project that we have ongoing. So we've had interest from all across the country. So it's been quite amazing in terms of that. So I think we've had some unique volunteer opportunities that have really added a different layer to our programming.
Penny Lynn, it's Maureen here. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the obituary transcription program? That sounds intriguing.
Right, so we have obituaries that we need transcribed. Some of them are oral and some of them are written. And so we, members of the community do that. We send them information, they transcribe those obituaries for us, and then we make them available digitally through our website. So
That's great.
we did this with soldier cards also on an earlier project. Soldier cards from when people were in the war, information about the soldiers, and it was a really popular virtual project for us as well.
Evette, are you able to talk about security measures that have been put into place for children accessing Zoom programs?
I would say at this point, we haven't had to worry about that so much, only because when we do the Zoom programming for children, it's a story time that a parent attends with the child, and it's been for very young children. So that's currently what we're doing, and haven't gotten into anything beyond that.
Okay. One of the questions that just came in that I'll take is, does the toolkit include tips for in-person early literacy programming and some of the risks involved? As part of Maureen's introduction, and then as part of Karen's key considerations, we have reminded everyone, please, to keep in touch with your local health authorities and follow the directions that we're all being provided locally. And Karen's list of key considerations that we all worked on as a group included lots of questions to ask as we consider that. And I feel like with the Google Drive, there'll be a shared Google Drive of resources that all of us on this call can be sharing. We'll all look to each other for that guidance and direction too as we move forward, because some of us will be moving into that in the next month or so, and some of us are still a few months out from moving there as our local considerations change. So we have, hopefully, in those key consideration questions, provided those questions to think about of how we will slowly transition to some form of in-person programming again, and also keeping in mind that while our spaces have always been full with story times and other great in-branch programming, our space might also have the opportunity to welcome some other partners or community organizations that might have lost access to their space while they've lost access to funding and other volunteers as well. And hopefully our spaces can serve as multi-purpose spaces until we resume programming, and even again when we do resume programming. Karen, I'm going to give you this question about copyright, about the copyright being extended beyond June 30th. I know that there is some concern. Do we have to take all of our online story times down on June 30th?
That's a good question, but I'm afraid I don't have the answer to it. We might have to group source. In Halifax, we've been pretty cautious so far about venturing into copyrighted material. The details are tricky, and it's not as wide open as one might assume when you first get the sort of headline saying that copyrighted information is accessible. So we are definitely looking at what we can do live right now more than recorded.
Yeah, I would say that that's kind of the the safest thing. If it's live, and a one-time only, it's where you get into archiving things that there's some issues. And I know that certainly at the CULC level, that is something that we are exploring. I would like, there's a lot of questions coming up, so I know Lisa is tracking them, but I would just say that some excellent points have been raised, and as we've said, this toolkit is a living document. So as things evolve, and I think this is what we're all experiencing, what might have made sense a couple of weeks ago is now maybe changing. We'll address that. The question of evaluation is coming up quite a bit. Lisa, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I was going to give that one to Jennifer, I think, and it might be our last question because we are slowly oh, are we running out of time, or are we still okay? No, we're still okay for time, actually.
We're fine.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
All the different time zones, I'm getting confused.
Yeah. No,
Jennifer,
we're good.
Are you using traditional evaluation, or are you using some kind of new form of evaluation for your programs now that we're mostly programming online?
Well, we are just starting to move into programming online. We've been talking to what it might look like, and first identifying what outcomes we're looking for when we're going to be delivering our programming, and then probably by email or maybe some surveys that we can have up on the website. So that's still really in the works. So I'd be curious to know what other people are doing, actually.
Did someone else from our group want to jump in on evaluation before we go to Penny Lynn about teen volunteer info?
Halifax too is wrestling with new approaches to evaluation. For example, when we're working with people online, there's often 3 people engaging in the experience. So you're, it's, do we count connections? Do we count people? Registrants versus participants are often different numbers, as we know. So there are other things to consider. And then, yes, what kind of short questionnaire or follow-up might we be able to do to find out a little more about how the experience is working and what the outcomes are. Still under development.
Thanks, Karen. Penny Lynn, back to you. Can you talk to us about some new teen volunteer opportunities that you've had? Some people have mentioned that they've been able to continue the teen things where the connections were made already, but when we're starting from scratch with new teen volunteers, can you give us some details about the kinds of things happening in Kitchener?
So we have kept our youth advisory committee going. It's a very active group of teens. They've had some amazing ideas about what they can do. We've reached out to retirement homes. They're drawing pictures, they're writing stories and poems and cards to sort of keep connected with those individuals who aren't able to come into the library or who are experiencing some isolation because of the current situation. We have a youth environmental committee that's really taken off and embraced the opportunities to share online and to share resources. What else are we doing with our teens? I think a lot of storytelling and book reviews and things like that have really resonated with that group.
And our committee member, Carrie Kitchen, has also posted a great comment in the questions about the teen think tank that they're working on in Calgary, where they've had 2,000 participants. Most of us can't even imagine 2,000 teens. So that's, thanks for sharing that online as well, Carrie. And I've seen in the chat lots of people talking about program evaluation. People are collecting chats, views, online surveys, and then also using the traditional evaluation techniques that we've been using. And I think in our CULC shared Google Drive, we'll start seeing more of those evaluation samples come along as well as we all continue to continue with virtual programming. As Maureen said at the beginning, for some of us, it's brand new. For some of us, it's an enhancement of what we've always done. But I think for all of us, it's going to be part of our programming portfolios as we move forward. So it's great that we've had this opportunity to start and expand together.
Lisa, you just reminded me something, and I'm going to turn it back to Penny Lynn again. But Penny Lynn, speaking of virtual programming, Penny Lynn, you one of the items that you shared from Kitchener was kind of a really nifty kind of guideline for virtual programming, and I wonder if you could speak to that, because I think we will have that available as a sample.
So we sort of explored with our team what the best venues were to present different kinds of programs, whether it was a Facebook Live event. We've been exploring with TikTok a little bit and have put our toes in the water there with some fun, a partnership with a local chef who shows us how to make grilled cheese sandwiches and stuff on TikTok. So that's been kind of fun. The toolkit really sort of goes through when Instagram stories might be the best place to deliver your program, when Facebook Live might be, some of the key considerations for each one, some of the constraints. We've had to be creative sometimes with partners and how we work with them on our Facebook page to provide that live programming. So I think there's a lot of good tips and tricks in there in terms of what the best platform is and the key considerations that you need to make before going live on any one of those platforms.
Yeah, thanks so much, Penny Lynn. I know there's a question about when the link to the Google Drive, and we'll confirm that after this webinar. It may not be quite available, but we'll make sure it is, if not later today, by Monday. So that all of the items that we've been referencing, if they're not currently accessible as part of the toolkit, the drive will become more animated. I just, something else that was said reminded me, Lisa, do you want to speak very briefly about the Hamilton Public Library program of calling seniors?
So we had a pilot start in our visiting library service, and our visiting library staff started calling seniors, and we decided to expand that beyond, and our full team of staff are now calling our customers over 75. It was interesting to see the results from that program. It's about a quarter of them wanted to have a call back. Everyone was overwhelmed to receive the call and appreciated the initial check-in. And then we asked customers if they wanted to opt in to receive a weekly call. And some of our weekly calls are just really a touch base on what's going on in their lives. And some of our calls have ended up leading to further reference to food agencies or other senior support. So we're happy to be able to provide that ongoing one-on-one personal reference service and check-in service with our customers. And we are planning to continue that as we go along. And we are also anticipating that as we move through the different phases in the province of Ontario, we'll have less seniors requesting a call back, but we'll keep calling back as long as there are seniors who are looking for those calls to come in. And I've got a question for Jennifer. Jennifer, in all the research that we've been doing as a team over the last few weeks, what's the one program that you saw that you're not already running that you're most excited to consider trying at your library?
Oh, well, almost all of them. For me, I think the escape room programming sounds fantastic. So something like that engages the older kids, I'd love to try and explore that.
And so, Karen, I've got a question from you from our participants. How are you determining what programs to focus on? There's so much out there that libraries are doing. How do you make a decision on what to try?
Well, I think we're all in the midst of that process right now, but I think this current time has asked us to really think first practically at the phase that we're in. Right now, most libraries are not open, and so the in-person option is not really practical, but we see movement there, and we're starting to look at, in Halifax, at what we could do outdoors, for example. It's summertime. We really are recognizing how deeply some of our vulnerable community members are hurting. Some of them were struggling before. It's even more challenging now. Areas like food insecurity and social isolation are profound issues in our area. So we have focused some energy there because we know there's immediate need. And so our snack pack example is one of those, but we're also working on a program where we will do some of our food literacy workshops. We'll come with home delivered kits of food and a food box from our mobile market or Square Roots food provider, and we'll provide recipes and a DVD that shows our food literacy specialist cooking along. And we can also do online cook-alongs with that type of produce as well, but we'll focus on some home delivery of materials and supplies. We've done a little bit of that with teens as well. Again, I think some of our more innovative or new areas are really thinking about how to reach people who can't access us any other way.
Evette, we're coming to you next. I just wanted to address one thing quickly in the chat. Someone asked about the freedom of information for the seniors calls. We were calling our own library customers, and that's why it was just that first initial call, and then customers had the option to opt in. And we felt, based on the legal opinion that we received, that we were respecting everyone's freedom of information. Evette, at Hamilton Public Library, we have freedom to fail cards from our CEO, which have allowed us to be creative and try lots of new things. As your library's been trying new things and exploring options during this time, how have you created an environment for people to feel like that they can try things, or what's been the biggest challenge or learning from trying new things?
I would say just right off the top that safety is of course one of our most primary considerations, probably the most primary consideration, and just the various intricacies of ensuring, trying to ensure as much as possible that patrons and staff are safe, either inside or outside the library, has been a real learning for us. We do lots of different things, and especially for children, and just trying to keep them safe is a big challenge. So trying to be online as much as possible, including, you know, with our story times and those kinds of programs, as well as our summer reading adventure, keeping it online this year has been not a challenge, but an interesting issue for us for sure at this time.
And Shauna from our think tanks reminded all of us, as Maureen and Karen had mentioned as well, that we all had strategic plans before this. While we will all pivot and make sure that our strategic plans are resilient and responsive to the current situations, our strategic plans continue to provide us guidance along with our boards in the work that we do. And if people are feeling that they're not sure exactly where to start from the original foundation of the strategic plan and go from there. And I know that Karen, as part of her presentation, reminded us of the questions that we need to think about as we do create that new foundation for our programming. There's some great stuff in the chat about book bikes. I love our bookmobile, and we hope to get a book bike one day too in Hamilton. So it will be great, as Maureen said, when we do have our Google Drive, that we all share information on the various kinds of new and innovative outreaches that we'll be doing. We have in Hamilton, and it's also just come up in the chat as well. It might be an extension of programming and link on with collections as well. We have had to cancel our book sale. And so as part of our programming outreach, we are sharing all of our book sale titles with food banks and other community agencies who are serving customers in person at this time. And we've included a sticker on the back of it to remind customers that the library is open online, and that when the library is open in person, that they are able to visit our libraries, have their fines and fees waived, and be able to access the collections too that are in the library in the future. So Maureen, I'm going to pass it over to you for a minute. And when you're thinking about programming, a lot of people, and including all of us on the task force, have spent time thinking about those people who are isolated, homebound, without internet. What is happening in the West Coast when thinking about that, or at your library when you think about those customers in the next few months before we are able to resume some more in-branch programming?
Well, certainly we are also looking at the notion of getting our discarded books out into the community. We have quite a lot that were ready for book sale, and excuse me, clearly that's not going to happen for a while. But as Jennifer said, we're working with our partners. We're shortly going to be introducing Holds Pickup service, and that will be kind of a preliminary step. But I think it really is, I've always said, it's all about community connections, and we have kind of a complicated governance model in Victoria. We have 10 different municipalities that we work with, so staying in touch with them has been important, getting messaging through things like their tax bills and such. But we are, as Jennifer said, we are in the kind of early stages at some levels and further along in others. I'm one of the things that's been kind of on our minds is just the issue of summer reading club coming up. You know, we all know that there are online opportunities, but again, for the children and families that are not connected, I'd be interested to know what people are thinking about doing with Summer Reading Club.
In Halifax, we decided to create a Summer Reading Club phone line. So we are going to be able to maintain that personal one-on-one interaction with children as they're reading and learning over the summer, and provide that encouragement and feedback. And we've actually decided to go with a brag tag concept of incentive this year, which is very fun and also mailable. So we thought, how lovely for kids in our community to get snail mail from the library, which for them is quite unique. So I think we're looking at that kind of interaction, in addition, of course, to material that will be available online through TD Summer Reading Club and the library's website. But I think we really feel this year we'd like to continue to maintain that personal touch, which has been such a difference maker for kids over the summer.
That's a great idea, snail mail from the library. That's really, that brings back memories of having pen pals, you know, how exciting it would be to get kind of a letter from some exotic line. Yeah, I think that's certainly something that we're looking at is we don't want to lose that personal connection, and it's going to be with there. I think, Jennifer, there has been some discussion about packages that we're going to be handing out, because when you talk about vulnerable populations, I do feel that children are extremely vulnerable during this time. So Jennifer, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so it's something that we're just sort of working through right now, but we love the idea of being able to, you know, maybe be outside at a location where we could hand out items, or maybe that's part of our curbside or the holds pickup that we're going to do. So I love the idea of the phone and also of the mail as well, though. I mean, it is a nice thing to try and consider how we can keep that close connection with the kids. So I think we'll do some brainstorming in the next week. And
Jennifer is kind of our bike mobile expert. We've had a bike mobile for quite some time, and that has been one method that we're going to be looking at. And also we have an outreach van. So again, the challenge for all of us is that a lot of our outreach activities in the past were affiliated with outdoor festivals and markets and all of these things that attracted mass numbers of people that of course have all been canceled. So you know, how do we kind of get out there? But things are slowly opening up, and I think that is you know, that personal contact is what our users are really missing. And when you think about you know, a book like Palaces for the People and how important libraries were cited as centers of social interaction for those people that are isolated, I think that's another big challenge ahead of us. We are just about at the end of our time slot. I'm just going to ask Lisa, who's been so incredibly efficient at moderating the chat discussion and the Q&A. Lisa, has anything else come up just in the last little bit in terms of the questions on chat that you'd like to raise before we sign off?
No, so there is a lot of great stuff getting posted right now, including stuff from Carrie and from Calgary and from the Quebec libraries too, about all the great SRC stuff. And it sounds like a lot of us are doing printed and pickups. And so because CULC will be saving this chat and sharing it with us, all that information will be available to us as well. And I will give it back to you, Maureen, to close off our session.
All right. Well, again, just to reiterate what Lisa's just said, the full toolkit is available both in HTML and PDF. There definitely will be an associated Google Drive for this group so that everyone can start contributing and also accessing the information that's available. I just want to recognize again the not only the participants on the group, but the chief librarians in CULC who allowed us to work with so many talented staff. We're all extremely busy right now, and the intense amount of work that's been done to put together these toolkits has really been remarkable. So once again, I'd like to thank Evette Barry from Calgary Public Library, Karen Dahl from Halifax Public Library, Penny Lynn Fielding from Kitchener, Tracy Kendrick and Jennifer Rowan from GVPL with me, Carrie Kitchen from Calgary, Shauna May from Calgary, and of course Lisa Weaver, who I'm incredibly grateful for managing our time today. So thank you all very much. I encourage you to look at the toolkit. We appreciate your time and good luck and stay safe. Thank you very much. Thanks.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.